Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I don't know where you are in your mind, in your life, or in your position. This is the Chicken Box. Maybe you've heard of it. I'm your host, Impeccable. That's right, Mr. Peck is able. I named myself. Don't be mad. And along with my co-host, Jay Jackson. How you feeling, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
Man, I am doing fantastic. You know what? You got to choose to say good words about yourself. You ever wake up and just say, you meet people just, that energy just transfers. I need that energy of grateful, thankful, and then you're amazing. Don't speak bad words about yourself. I mean, you got enough people talking bad words about you, but why would you say something bad about yourself? Anyway, in case you never tuned in, I think our co-host, Dr. Draper, what you laughing about? Come on in. Come on in this conversation.
I'm laughing at you, Impeccable. Hello, everyone. Hey there, Jay Jackson. I
How
never
are you?
I never speak bad about myself
Don't speak bad about yourself.
because I'm
That's not what
fearfully
we talking
wonderful.
about. We are talking about this is what we're gonna get into, fellas. Listen, some fellas, we gotta get on our game as a whole. Black people versus busy women. Now, don't take busy wrong, because busy can mean productive and narco can mean just a busybody. But we're not talking about that today. We're not getting into that yet. But the chicken box, let me get to that. Is it going to be air fried today? Is it going to be hot grease, or is it going to be baked? I don't know. It might get a little greasy once we get into the thick of the busyness of the powerful, strong black women. But before that, the chicken box is full wings and fries if you're from the Baltimore area. Yep, throw some salt and pepper, ketchup, hot sauce on it. But here, powered by the Afro, yes, America's third oldest black business. I'm just going to leave it at that. 132 years old. Shout out to the Afro for powering the chicken box. But this is when you get to speak your truth. You know what's so great about it, Jay? You don't have to agree with me.
Yep,
I'm
that's true.
so sick of people just being mad at another person just because they want to vote for a different candidate because they don't like the same thing. All of a sudden, I hate you because you like blue and I like red. Stupidest thing I've ever heard. We're going to get into it. Black people versus busy women. And we're going to have our special guest. Hey, Mrs. Leslie Laurelfield.
Hello,
Hello.
hello.
Man, her energy was so on fire. She got me pumped up backstage. I'm here. Jay, why don't you introduce our special guest? And then I'll let CEO of Girl Organize That Life. Get that life. I'm ready for it. Come on, Jay.
Okay. Leslie Laura Fills is the founder and CEO of Girls Organize That Life, the number one organization and productivity program for high achieving moms and executive women. The John Maxwell certified coach and trainer. She's also a TEDx speaker and number one international and Amazon bestselling author. DC native. We won't get too mad at you, but welcome. I'm just teasing. You're also a distinguished lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, with over 61 years of combined service alongside your husband. And I'm very interested to talk to you for many reasons, but you also have your signature 8-step G.P.S. program to help women get organized. And people can find your information at girlorganizethatlife.com. So thank you for coming. I'm sure
Thank
it'll
you
be a
for
fun
having
conversation.
me.
I need those horns. Bam, bam, bam. Just her intro was busy enough. I was like, okay. She's getting up early with the service and she's doing all of that. If I just met you, I heard you were at a conference and I'm glad you stepped up to come say hello to us. You're at the Sell
Black
Live
Women Sell Live.
Black Women Sell Live conference in Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
And you
In
stepped away to
Atlanta.
jump on a chicken box. So that's how busy women do it. So if I just met you in the lobby and I said, what was your business? What would you say to me?
I would say my business, as a result of being a mother of 12 amazing children while serving in the military, I started Go Organize That Life to help other executive level, high achieving moms, mompreneurs, and lady leaders who still may struggle with burnout and overwhelm. I help them to pivot with poise despite the noise. Essentially, I help to sew up moms when they feel like they're falling apart at the seams.
Good
Short
God
version.
Almighty. Pivot
Yes.
with poise. Dr. Draper, jump on in here.
I love it. Pivot with poise. Ignore the noise, and there is a lot of noise. And I don't know, Impeccable. I heard and Jay heard you introduce her our guest rather. and I would just read her title of her business as "Girl, Organize That Life," you know, right, with that emphasis like that. And so, kudos to you for your business. We certainly want to jump into that and find out a little bit more. Just the fact that you said you were the mom of 12.
Okay, let me go ahead and dispel the questions because I'm sure they're out there in somebody's head. No twins, same father. The end.
Wow.
No twins, same dad. The end. I love it.
The end. Ping ting.
See, we can have some sayings in the black community, can we? Pain, thing, rave, no rave, whatever we say, we gotta make it work. We move to a rhythmic melody even in business and in life.
Absolutely.
So, what inspired you? I heard you say you help uh, the moms that need a little push.
Mhm.
What inspired you to start this company?
I always get that question. Oh my gosh, you have so many children, like, and you're in the army because people like you don't look like you're in the army, and I'm like, well, what does that look like? But these are things that are said, and the number one question that I get is, how do you do it? And initially, I didn't. I met with a mentor. His name is Trevor Otts. He's the founder and CEO of Black CEO, and we had a call 3 years ago, July 9th, 2021. And of course, he knows my background. I met him through auditioning to speak on his stage. And that went from there to a phone call. And he was like, "Do you know what you can do with this? In the army, 12 kids." And I'm listening to him like, well, this is my life. It's normal for me. But I know it's not normal in society. I get that. But he did everything he spoke. He said coaching program, podcasts, writing books, helping women. And that's how it came to be. And then he's one of those like prophetic speakers. Once he says it, he won't remember what he said. So I'm recording and I'm taking notes at the same time. And he said, organize that life. No, 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 no. Girl, organize that life. And I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. I want you to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So I followed all of his instructions, got the logo, thought about my colors and all the things and what would that look like. And the colors are synonymous with peace and tranquility. So they were chosen with a purpose in mind, not just random colors. And here we are. So my business was conceived on July 9th, 2021. It was birthed December 6th of 2022. And here we are in 2024, just, doing my first live in-person event where I actually had women to come into the fold and just receive all of the magic and all of the juice. And it was just so rich. So that's kind of how I got started.
And I
Man,
love the birth analogy. So it was conceived, and then it was birthed, and now you are nurturing it and
Yes.
growing it and maturing it. You know,
Yes.
yeah, all of those birth analogies. That's just great. And so, fairly young business, right? Three
Hmm.
3 years old. This is your first conference that you've organized, and so again, thank you for stepping away from the conference. You told us what the question is you always get. What other questions do people ask you?
How do I find time for me?
Okay,
That's probably the
and
number two. That's
okay,
probably the number two question.
It's a good question.
yeah. So how do you?
Yeah.
So one thing I tell people, and I want to be clear, what I'm saying, I wasn't always there. I morphed into this person now over time. Like you all heard, between my husband and I, we have over 6 decades of military service. So you can imagine there's deployments in between. We're going to the war zone. We're going to schools. We're doing this and that while we're raising such a large brood of children. And I would say probably year 10 ish, I started to become more intentional about making sure I had time for me. What does that look like? Sometimes it was just extra sleep. And then as my kids, when they were younger, I started training them. Listen, this is mommy time. This is mommy and daddy's time. And started to set boundaries even with them so that they could understand, mom, dad, we love you and we're busy, but we have to make sure that mom and dad are mom and dad so we can be a better mom and dad to you. And that's going to require us to spend time. As far as time for myself, same thing. A few years ago, I started Mother's Day, for example. I will go to a hotel on Friday, check myself in, tell my family I'll see you on Sunday for Mother's Day. And the only two things that I want, clean house and quiet house. That's it. I'm easy. And so once I started implementing these small things, it became like a big thing in terms of how I ran my life, period. So if I needed a timeout from the job, if I needed a timeout from the family, if I needed a timeout from the husband, or whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm just very intentional on making sure that I allot that time for me. And I found that once I got over the like mommy guilt, wife guilt, because I talk about that too in my coaching program, like we're gonna get over that. Um, Once I did that, I found that I was able to open up my capacity to do more, and not only do more, but do it even more efficiently, effectively, timely, more lovingly, because I poured into myself. And one last thing I'll say to that, this past April, I had the chance to spend 5 days with Lisa Nichols. um and I asked her, I had a chance to do like an on spot interview with her. I said, Lisa, how do you do all you do and give us all of this greatness? And she looked at me and she said, well, I fill my cup up first and then I give it to you all for my overflow. I said, oh, not from her cup, from her overflow. So to me, what that said, Leslie, keep your cup full, whatever that looks like. And then you give to people from your overflow. And you're never depleted. So those are some of the things I do. Just
Boom.
very
You
intentional.
drop that's
Like,
a life lesson right there. If you just tuned in, this is Black People versus Busy Women. We are here with the CEO of, you gotta say it like this, girl, organize that life. That's what I heard. You gotta say it like what? Girl,
Girl, yes.
organize
Get it
that
together.
life. Man, when you think about all the things that are just going on in the day period, right?
Hmm.
Especially as, don't throw in motherhood, and then don't throw in a nice little husband in there. The day just goes by. Everybody say the statement, everybody has 24 hours in a day. You know what I mean? Every
Hmm.
second is a second you've never seen before, and a second you'll never see again. That's what they
Hmm.
taught me in English class. And so, your dime, my time, let's waste it. No, let's not waste it, right? Let's
Right.
get to it, and let's get to our purpose. Jay, I know you had a lot because you was digitally scratching your head about all of the things that she was saying. I know you're itching to jump in. Come on.
yeah. You mentioned like during the intro, I talked about your GPS system, and I wanted you to go into that a little bit, and just can you talk about how that what it is, and then how does that
Hmm.
help women balance their lives? Whether they have kids or don't, or balancing their home life and work, and
Hmm.
maybe in the military as well.
Hmm.
Um, and then just speak to the idea of being overwhelmed and what the system actually can help kind of bring that feeling of being overwhelmed down a little bit so people can
Hmm.
kind of be their best selves.
So GPS actually has two meanings. The
Okay.
first meaning, which provides like the foundation, which is God, priorities, and structure.
Okay.
Without those three things, life can just get really hectic.
Sure.
And then the second thing that I like women to harness is your girl power synergy. That creates the GPS system. And we delve deeper in those things within the program, of what that means, starting with your faith. And I'm clear to say, I don't shut it off. You believe what you believe, and I don't infringe on that. But I want to be clear on this is where we are in
Sure.
this company and what we strive for. So God is the center for me personally of everything that I do. And this is a faith based business. So I'm clear on that. As far as priorities, we talk about, I don't like to use the word time management. Every time I hear that statement, that's like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up because, like you just said, we only have 24 hours in a day. We can't manage time. Time is time. It is what it is. That's all you're getting. But we can have good self management so we can optimize the use of our time. So that's a Leslieism and how I look at it, and I talk through this with my clients. So in priorities, I teach them strategies and tools on really what it is to lay out List everything you think you have to do. And notice I said think. Because what I found as I work with my clients, they realize, oh my gosh, I can put that down, or I can let somebody do A, B, C, or I can have the kids do that. Like, no one says you have to do everything, whether it's if you're a mom or a lady leader, delegate some stuff, delete some stuff. Really I like to call it like a triage, like we do in the emergency room. You have all these people, and the doctors are looking at, okay, if it's not life, limb, or eyesight, then everybody else can wait. We're going to get to those things first, and then you work your way back. And that's how I like to look at priorities. You triage what you have to do. What is really most important? What are your showstoppers? What are your glass balls, if you will? And I teach them how to really be able to identify those things. And then there's structure, because we can't be all over the place. That's going to cause the overwhelm. Most times when people are feeling like overwhelmed or burnt out, or oh my gosh, first thing, it starts with here, because it's not the situation that evokes your emotions. I talk to my clients about this, and I drive it home. It's your thoughts about what you're dealing with that evokes your emotion. So if you think you're overwhelmed, guess what you're going to be? Overwhelmed. If you think you're frazzled and stressed, that's what you're going to be. But if you think that you can be poised and centered, then we're going to be that. And so we do structure, and part of the structure, we start with the mind. Part of the structure, we do mindfulness activities, i.e., taking deep breaths, because we want to center the nervous system. Bring yourself down from whatever that stress or overwhelm is. And now we can get into the root of the matter. So that is what compiles the GPS system.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that feels like something that people can kind of take away, and if they're listening to this or watching this, take that away and sort of try to implement that immediately. But that was very helpful. Thank you.
I think a quick way to look at it: you cannot boil an ocean.
Right.
You can't do all the things. You just have to pick and choose.
Unless you're a volcano.
Right.
And last time I checked, I don't know how many people. Hey, look, but fellas, you done been around a woman that got hot. She felt like a volcano until you got out that room, then she lit you up. Anyway, if you just tuned in, this is Black People versus Busy Women, and you cannot boil an ocean unless you make a black woman mad. Then that's it. That's like that's like boiling the ocean. So 12 kids, and yes, you dispelled the myth. Same daddy. Same love of your life. You got 6 decades of service combined, right?
Yeah.
In the military. So how did the military prepare you for structure in your life?
Oh
Or
man.
did it?
No, it did. I mean, even before I came in as an officer, of course, there's ROTC, so we're training for that stage, that platform. But everything is strategic. I mean, we have standard operating procedures for everything. We have regulatory guidance for everything. There's nothing that we do in the Army that there isn't a written piece of information to tell you how to do the thing.
Mm.
And we call operation orders, which literally tells us this is what you're doing from A to Z. And people ask me, as far as my busy house, well, I do probably run it like a military operation, because I find that the military is very structured. So if I can be structured at work, why can't I be structured at home? And then why can't I let my children know how to be structured, or those that I work with or work for, those that I come in contact with that may, kind of be scatterbrained. Let's get some structure. Now, does it mean I'm this way 100% of the time? No, let's be clear and let's be real and raw. Sometimes I can get that way too, but I know how to quickly gather myself and say, because then I get that overwhelmed, like, oh, okay, what do we have going on? And how do we need to pivot? Hence the tagline: pivot with poise despite the noise. You have to get yourself in a quiet place and space to think, and to be able to hear your own thoughts, and to be able to just process, what do I have going on in the moment. And just remember, we can't do all the things. Stop that. Stop that. Can I just say this real quick? Can I freestyle?
Wait. Yeah,
I just
this
want to
is
say
chicken
this real
box.
fast.
You can definitely say it here.
I just want to say it real fast. Okay. Multitasking. Listen, humans. Those that are listening, don't be sold to the illusion of multitasking. Stop it. When you multitask, Studies have shown that you are decreasing the gray matter in your brain that is responsible for your cognitive thinking, your memory, your reasoning, you're being able to go from A to Z. So when you're trying to do 5 things at one time, you're scrambling your brain. Stop that. And if you don't have the book called The One Thing, please get it and put it in your library. You can even listen to it for free 99 on YouTube. Let that free you. I just want to free somebody with that. Oh, I'm multitasking. No, stop it. Not good for you.
Not good. You're
No.
right. Multitasking doesn't work. And it is a difference between multitasking and having many tasks to organize and get them done and prioritizing those, right?
Correct.
And I heard the biblical reference, as a man or woman thinketh, there he is,
So
or
is
she
he.
is, right? You mentioned earlier about being intentional around the colors that you chose. Can you say a little bit about the colors and what they mean to you, and not the process for choosing them, but you said you were very intentional about colors.
Hmm. So in this space, I'm thinking, okay, how can I help? I always come back to the word centered. And when I think of centered, I think of peace. I think of calmness. I think of serenity. I think of tranquility. So I studied the colors and I was like, okay, I need colors that's going to speak to that. And that's how we came up with like the green and the turquoise mix. Hmm. That's how the colors were decided. And a lot of people have mentioned, oh my gosh, your branding, your colors are like soothing to the eye. I'm like, okay, good. That's the goal. Not just that, but just having that feeling of peace.
Yes, that's my favorite color combination. So thank you for sharing that. What
Yes.
what do you find when you're working with, because you work with women and you're helping women to organize their lives and their thinking and their output and their in, what they take in, what they put out. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm just surmising that part of this is also around lifestyle. It's around diet. It's around, and I don't mean being on a diet. It's around taking care of this one body.
Mhm. Mhm.
What do you say to women about self care of our bodies? Not just our emotions, but of our bodies.
Self care equals less health care. That's not my statement. I got that from another colleague of mine, but I loved it. So I want to give her credit. Her name is Miss Jackie. And when I heard that, I'm like, that is so like in alignment with what I'm doing here. Self care is it's a mandatory thing. That's not even it's not negotiable. It's just like you breathing oxygen. And all the folks are, well, I don't have time to rest, or I don't have time to sleep. I don't have time to make sure I eat well. You have to make the time, because if you want to extend yourself here on earth, or at least however long you're supposed to be here, because we don't know our appointed time or date, right? We just know we're here until then. Take care of the one vessel that God gave you. And that's even a commandment from Him. That's what He wants us to do. We shouldn't be abusing ourselves by not taking care of ourselves. So that's how I feel about self care. It's necessary, and it should be a mandate in every, not just a woman, a man, a person, period. It should be a mandate in every person's life
Yeah, I
that you
agree with
make it
that.
a priority.
Yeah, I
Girl.
mean, there is a level of this is going to sound a little weird, but there's a
Mhm.
level of selfishness that you have to sort of
Absolutely.
like to take care of yourself. Yeah, I say this a lot actually in my personal life. If you don't take care of yourself, then I'm not going to be there for my wife and my daughter. Like, so you have
Correct.
to say, okay, I got to take time to, whether it's exercise or eat well or what have you, whatever that means for you, be it spiritual, physical, whatever. But you do have to have that moment where you say everything else has to slide down in priority, because
Hmm.
you have to be the top priority. Otherwise, you're not going to be here to take care of any of the other things. So I 100% agree with that. Like, I think
I
it's a
always think
very
about the analogy. You're on the plane, they're giving you the instructions.
exactly.
Do they say put the mask on the kids first? What if you stop breathing? I mean, so I always revert to that.
Yeah,
Put
no,
your mask on
it's a great
first.
analogy. It's a great
Yeah.
analogy.
Shout out to Trevor Otts. I met Trevor a couple times.
Oh yes.
He is a a life speaker. You might have called it right. He don't remember what he said to you, but he
Oh
said something.
no, you better
He
catch
said
it like
something.
he
He
can,
said
like a
something good,
gingerbread man.
and let him
Yeah,
and Shay get in the room together, and it's them two together, and it's you're gonna come up with something. They are two guys who are definitely uh make things happen. They just don't talk about it, and they speak into a lot of people's lives,
oh yeah.
and I'm glad to see that you know what I mean. You could hear something, but then if you don't do it, you just heard it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then, like people say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start this, I'm going to work out, whatever it is they say, like when Dr. Draper used to say, when you know better, you'll do better.
Absolutely.
Well, will you?
That's
But will
and it
you?
comes down to like same thing. We talked about that when I talk to my clients. I'm like, listen, Linda, and I tell them, I'd be like, especially if we're on a Zoom,
Listen,
like,
Linda.
listen, Linda, I'm like, lean in because I want you to hear this. You won't always be motivated to do the thing, but you're gonna have to be disciplined enough to do the thing. I don't feel like dealing with kids all the time. Let's be clear. Sometimes I just need a minute. But they have what they need. My job has what it needs. There are requirements that have to, so just got to get after it. You got to have discipline in this world. You have to have that.
Do it when you feel like it and when you don't feel like it. If you just tuned in,
Absolutely.
this is Black People versus Busy Women, and we're not talking about just busy bodies, because some people just you heard the busybody term, or just people who just busy doing nothing, getting
Busy doing
nothing
nothing.
accomplished.
Mhm.
But you were talking about how to manage the time that all of us have been given in a day. And one, you got to take out and do what? Be the most important person in the world to yourself.
Do
And if
yourself.
you do not think that, you are already on the wrong path.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't think you're the most important person and treat people like they're the most important person, it's gonna be well, half of the world that we have right now is because
Mm.
of people just don't treat the other person like they're the most important person in the world. All right, I'm on my soapbox. I'm gonna get off of it. Let me slide back into girl. Organize that life. All right, so she got the GPS. Let's get back to center. This is Miss Leslie talking. Let's get back to center. Okay, so now after they get God, well maybe they might not get God. That's a choice. They get their
That's true.
power, got their GPS going on. What's
Mhm.
next for them? For the
As far as how do
for the
they,
broken, you said the broken woman, the broken mompreneur, the person who needs just a little,
well, not
couple,
necessarily broken, more like stressed, overwhelmed, burned
stress,
out.
stress burned out. Okay, let's
Mhm.
let's go there.
Mhm. Mhm.
How do we move just the person who's just totally stressed and like you said earlier, just speaking negative to themselves on a regular basis. Uh, how do we move them off of even that mindset?
So, one of the things that we do in my program in order to really, for me to understand them and for them to understand themselves, I'm also a behavior superpower specialist and coach. And I do an assessment. They take the assessment before we start, like on week 0, and then we review the assessment and it shows them how they show up. In that program, we have what's called your superpowers, and it's like 10 of them. So, if, for example, I'm a community builder, I'm the one that's going to get the buy in. We're going to kumbaya. We're going to make sure you're okay. That's me. And I'm more relationships oriented than I am results oriented, but don't get it twisted. I need my results. Whereas you may have someone that's an influencer that may be more results oriented than relationship oriented. So we do this assessment because it's important for individuals to understand how they are really showing up. And this isn't Myers Briggs, this ain't that, because Myers Briggs can change over time. But this is your assessment down to your 3-year-old self. And so once we get that, then we peel back, okay, this is who you are. And we're going to work with that to be able to really narrow down and harness on pain points that you may be experiencing. So that's the first thing we do. And then once we get into that, we dive deeper into that mind. We spend time on the mind because nothing will move without it. Trevor says, if you can't see it before you see it, you'll never see it. That's number one. And then he says, wherever you are in life, your mind got there first. And I'm just like, oh my God, that is so true. Right? We do and think what our mind tells us. So we spend a lot of time there because most of my clients, they come, like most people, you have all this stuff that you've carried, the stories that you've told yourself, the stories that other people have told you. Well, are they really true? Probably not, but you're living it out like it's true. And it shows up in your aspects, various aspects of your life. So we really dig deep in that. And then once we tackle those first two things, which is like a big part, then we're able to get to more of the mechanical things, i.e., how do we prioritize? How do we identify what we need to do? How do we manage? How do we implement self care? How do we take better care of our temples as far as, how we eat and exercise and all the things? And so that's kind of how we get after it. So it's a deliberate, it's an intensive for 120 days. And then people can decide if they want to stay longer. But I am not here to, this unconditional love and is a safe space. And I established that. But it is going to be intense in some instances because we got to get to the root of what's going on. So by the time you would have finished, you can walk away with, I have some relief somewhere.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, I think that's powerful. Um, I have a question on one of your programs. A lot of people talk about IQ, right? Your level of intelligence, right? On your program, you mentioned emotional intelligence or EQ, and I don't think a lot of people are necessarily aware of that. More people should
Hmm.
be,
Hmm.
but it's often said that women tend to have higher EQ. Because they are sort of the foundations of families, and generally, more than likely like caretakers and things like that, whether you have children or not, just in families.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm wondering, when you deal with EQ, when you're dealing with people's sort of their emotional intelligence on this, do you find that a lot of people already go in knowing what EQ is, sort of like they have this kind of, to your point earlier, they have this superpower that they use on a daily basis that they don't have like a name for? um
Hmm.
do you find that you're kind of like making people aware, these women aware of that, and they're like, oh yeah, that's my thing? And for the ones who are not aware of it, how do you work to sort of increase that awareness and increase their EQ? Because I think that's really a lot of the crux of seemingly the crux of your work is getting connected to your emotional intelligence around these
Hmm.
things and figuring out when you got to pull yourself back and put yourself
Hmm.
forward and that sort of thing. So do you find a lot of people are aware of this?
There's a mixture. And some people think they have it
Right.
and really don't.
Right.
And when we do that behavior assessment, it opens up, it's a lot
Right.
of revelation that happens. Like, oh, because when we do the assessment, it actually breaks it down. You have various factors that breaks you down, like as far as if you're anchored, if you're spontaneous, if you're trusting, if you're more of a skeptic. I mean, we really get into the nitty gritty. It's so good. It's so juicy, actually. This thing is so good, it can actually save marriages, like seriously, because you can have a husband and a wife to both do the assessment, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't understand that about you, I didn't understand that about you. And then we teach you how to flex. So even though I'm a community builder and I'm like, kumbaya, sometimes I have to be like, type person,
Right.
particularly in the military and on my job, because I tend to be like a mother hen type of leader and I need everyone's well being to be intact. But then when I have to, I'm like, but this task is late and I have to get this to my boss. So let's find out what's going
Right.
on so we can, so we talk about what it means to flex. And in reference to EQ, that assessment, it just reveals so much. And the first component of emotional intelligence is self-awareness.
Right.
And that's why we start there. So if you are really aware of how you show up, what you're really made of, way underneath that you might not really talk about, it just does a world of good. Even down to corporations that I can go into and train if I needed to. The first thing you might hear, oh, this is a toxic environment. Maybe, maybe not. Let's talk about EQ. Let's assess the team. Everybody do their individual, and then now we're gonna assess you how you guys are showing up as a team. I did that with my team, my last position, and it was like, oh my gosh. Oh, well, that's why so and so wasn't trying to be like insubordinate or resistant. They really just can't do a lot of group projects per se.
Right.
That's just not their thing. And as a leader, it helped me to know my staff. And it's the same thing I do for my clients because I need to know who you are. You need to know who you are. It's just a lot of revelation that goes on.
Yeah, I was happy to see that emotional intelligence was a part of it because I mean,
Oh,
it's
yes.
like as I was sort of reading through it, I'm like, yeah, that feels like that would be, really at the core of it. So yeah, I
Mhm.
appreciate you hitting on that. That's great.
Yep. Look, before I want to ask you a question about your new but before we go there, I think one of the viewers had a question. Impeccable. If you could put it back up, I, I think I saw a question in the chat from the viewer. Okay, so Bonnie says she's trying to figure out the balance between self care time versus being selfish with my time. Is there a difference?
So, Miss Bonnie, what I would say to you, and this is a Leslieism, I don't necessarily believe in the word balance, and here's why. Something is always going to be tipped. That's just the way it is. We can try to make it level playing field. Think it's kind of like the seesaw effect. You know, something is always going to lean a little heavier than the other. Be selfish sometimes and be okay with it. You might have to reestablish boundaries if it's at home or work or wherever. Um, but I don't know if you were on here a few moments ago. Self care is a mandate, should be a mandate in your life. So you just have to prioritize it. And there's really nothing to it but to do it. There's no secret sauce with that. You have to just decide that I choose me. I choose me, then I can choose everything else after that. Because the bottom line is if you're no good, if your well being is not intact, you're walking around like tired and worn down and just can't give anyway, you're not giving anyway. So you might as well give to yourself first and then pour into other people after that. So you just have to prioritize. You have to make it a priority in your life. And I stress this to my clients.
Yep. I
Then I
get
have them to check in. Okay, you have this is your task for this week. And next week we're gonna talk about how did you do with that. And I can tell if they're kind of trying to fudge. Don't fudge because I can read people. And
I
then
love
that's
that.
why God called me to this because
Right.
I can't read folks. And I'll be like, I'm not feeling like you're being totally forthcoming here. Let's lean in some more. Let's talk, you know.
Yeah.
But yes, Miss Bonnie, just make it a priority. Be deliberate about it. And be okay with being selfish sometimes. It's fine. Everyone, they will survive. I promise you.
I love that. I put on my calendar something to do. So if
Hmm.
somebody asks me to do something in my me time, I said, "Oops, sorry, I have something to." It's actually on the calendar in a time block. I have something to do. Talk to us a
And
little
if
bit.
I could add real quick to
More.
caveat what you just said, Dr. Francis, my daughter's name is Tony too, by the way. Um, for those women that struggle with saying no, like you said, it's on my calendar, and if somebody calls me during my me time, for those that struggle with saying no, it is a complete sentence. We know that, but perhaps you could say, well, I really would love to help you with that.
Mhm.
But maybe if we could do that a little later, let me finish this up first, and I'm happy to circle back with you to see if I can be of assistance.
Yep.
You still say no? Well, not necessarily no, and not now, but for some women, they struggle with that to the point it is they can self implode because they don't know how to say no to people.
Yep. Learned how to do that. Well,
Man,
talk to
that was almost an awkward moment of silence because everybody, I think, reflected inside like, like what's stopping me from saying no? I mean, what is the biggest thing that stops people from saying no? Leslie.
Um, they have guilt, and sometimes it may be something that they're carrying internally that they have not quite dealt with. We do a lot of layer peeling in my program. I'm not a counselor, let's be clear, I'm a coach. But we do peel layers. But what stops them mainly from what I've seen, just the guilt of like, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. No, I need you to hurt feelings sometimes, or don't feel like you're hurting feelings. You just have to protect yourself in terms of what your capacity is. We all have one. And you have to recognize when your capacity is getting ready to be either reached or busting through the seams. And normally, when you're busting through the seams, that's probably not good at that point. You're probably angry or something else could be going on with you. So you have to know your capacity and make sure others around you are completely aware of your capacity and just stop feeling guilty about it.
What's that old saying? Piss poor planning on your part does not qualify
Comes to
as
an emergency on mine. Come on,
emergency on
sir.
mine. Come on, somebody. I mean, because listen, plus people can get to you now. They can push note you. They can text you. You put the do not disturb on and call you 3 times. You gotta put them on. You gotta put them on another list. Like their emergency is not your problem. And
And
sometimes,
that's all in training people on how to treat you as well.
mm-hmm,
If you value you and they see that you value you, they will honor you.
Right.
But we have to train them. And sometimes you have to retrain. First, you got to retrain yourself, especially those that I can't say no. Retrain yourself to say no sometimes. And then everyone will get with the program or no.
Yeah.
I just want to say this real quick. I talked about this in my summit. You have weights and you have anchors, and they both have the same functionality, but they serve two different purposes. Let me explain. Weights do what? They kind of hold you down, right? Anchors keep you grounded. Hear the difference? So, for those that struggle with saying no or struggle with self care because of people, you have to identify who are weights and anchors in your life. And if you're wanting to propel to the next level, if you wanted to show up better for other people, if you want to show up better for yourselves, you have to identify those folks. And if you have people, to include family, let's be clear, let me just free somebody from that too. If they are weights for you, you have to release them. Because when you don't do that, you're then holding up what you're supposed to be doing. And when you don't show up as the highest version of you, you have to ask yourself, who am I leaving behind because
mm-hmm.
of a weight?
When you say release them, I was back in that ocean. You said won't boil, and I
I
was wondering, did that weight that you released, did it float or did it just sink to the bottom?
don't
Because
know where it went, but it came off of me.
hey, it was probably only floating because it was holding on to you,
Ah.
and you could only get this high in the water. But now you probably can water ski.
Come on, sir. It's so
if, you,
freeing.
if you
It's so
just
freeing.
if you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box powered by the Afro, uh, America's third oldest black business, 132 years. We celebrate you, and we are able to have great programming like this because of your support. Go to afro.com for less than 2 Uber Eats, $40. I'm not gonna break it into what it is a day because if I got to do that, that's too much. But we need your support. We need to be empowering to our young journalists, our new technology that's coming, everything that allows us to tell our story our way. Bonnie, there's our good friend Byron. Thank you for always tuning in. And anybody else who's just listening and believes this information could definitely help them. Or I mean, I'm already free. I dropped some weights right while you were talking.
Amen.
What's the
Free.
thing? The saying they say
Don't you feel lighter?
I feel like I feel fast. Usain Bolt, watch out. You know what I mean? Watch out. I feel fast. But they say you are the average of the 5 people you hang with.
Oh my.
Mrs. Leslie, the 5 people that you hang with. They said you are the average, not the top. You're the average of the sum of those people. So how hard is it to get into a new circle with different people?
Oh, for me, it's not because I'm assessing. I'm assessing
I
you.
mean, how about the clients that you bring in who you're trying to get to
Um,
do some new things?
I can't necessarily say because we may get on that on the surface. I mean, at some point I do mention the weights and the anchors, and you gotta assess those that are around you. I've seen a little bit of both. Some people they want to hold on, and particularly if it's family, that seems to be like the hardest. And I get that because that's your family, and that's your blood. But sometimes it's like I can love you from anywhere. Right now, I have to love you from over here,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
say it with a smile. And to your point about you're the average of the five people that you hang with, I think it was Dr. McCallahan. Um, I forget what university that he taught from. I want to say Harvard or something, but he says that 95% of your stems your success or not stems from the people you hang with the most. I said 95%. That's high. So you have to really assess the people that's in your space. If you're constantly feeling like, if I go into someone's presence, and I do tell this to my clients, you, me, the client, whomever, when people leave your presence, if they don't feel like better or they feel different, meaning not so good, you gotta assess that. Like, oh, I need to feel more empowered. I don't know, I just feel heavy as a result of being around so and so. It's a real thing, and sometimes we don't want to, like, hurt feelings, and it's not about hurting feelings. It's really about, like I said, training people and people understanding what your expectations are, you understanding what their expectations are, and if those expectations are able to marry up to make a beautiful tapestry, great. And if not, then you got to be okay with some people, they can't go where you're going. And if you're growing, elevation requires separation, right? So
Right.
if you're growing to another level in yourself, those weights, you have to let them go. And it won't feel good sometimes. But in the end, you will be walking within the purpose that God has aligned for you. You cannot do that if you're holding, people holding you back.
Dr. Draper. Talk
Yeah, I just,
about talk about the switch that she says is always on, which I love, by the way. She said, I don't switch on my faith. I don't try to get you to jump on the bandwagon if that's not your cup of tea, but my faith is switched on at all times.
I
Hmm.
get it. Mine as well. And I'm not ashamed. My faith is my faith. I'm not ashamed, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but it's the power unto salvation to everyone who believes. And so that's my faith.
Hmm.
I don't try to impose it on you, but I share it anytime I get an opportunity. But I wanted to ask Mrs. Lorfield, this is your first summit. You said in Atlanta. Where are you going next? Do you have a
Okay,
national?
so my summit was in Maryland,
Oh, it's in
Gaithersburg,
Maryland.
Maryland, on September 14th, who was
Okay,
amazing.
I'm
And
sure.
now I'm at my coaches who taught me, raised me up.
Okay,
I'm at her live event in Atlanta.
got it.
But Girl Organize That Life, we are going on a tour. So excited. And our first stop is San Antonio, Texas, December 21st. Then we'll head to Dallas on December 22nd. And then after that, we're going to head over to New York in the spring, March 15th. And then we'll head to Philly, March 16th. And then we're going to take it south to Tampa and Fort Lauderdale, dates to be announced. So, yes, we are going on
Good.
tour.
So
We're going to give a
all,
little bit of this good in some cities.
good. So all your dates are up on your website, right? All your dates for your tour.
Landing page should be complete. Like, it's probably happening right now as we speak, and we're getting ready to
Oh,
send
good.
it off. And
So
we have a watch party coming up on the 9th of October. For those that missed the summit, they get to come in to the watch party and catch all the highlights and hear some of the juicy nuggets that were dropped. Because oh my gosh, jewels were dropped all over the place. And then at that time too, we'll be talking about the tour and giving people opportunity to get on the wait list because there's only
Alana,
limited slots for each city. So catch it like you can, like the gingerbread man.
all right, we're gonna stay tuned. And Alana Brown says sometimes we're charged to bear someone else's burden. What do you say to that?
Uh, that's a tough one, kind of, because one has to decide: are you saying that you're charged because you feeling like you're charged, or is that something that God told you to do? I'll give an example. I was at someone's 50th birthday party and I was sitting with some gentleman, and somehow we started talking about my kids and college and all of that. And then I heard him say, yeah, I got to work these two jobs to pay the tuition. And I looked at him and I said, who told you that? Who told you that you had to work two jobs to pay that tuition? And I'm saying that, and I'm not, hear me clear, everybody got to do what works in their household. I have three children in college, and I've already graduated one. I have not paid not a penny for anybody's college. At the moment my kids can understand English, they understand mom and dad, we're not paying. And that's not to be mean or nothing like that, but it's so much money out here until it's ridiculous. Your father is from a third world country. Your mom grew up in a single parent home in Southeast DC. Neither one of our parents had to pay for college. So if we could do it with those, with that type of environment, we're going to empower our kids who have better per se to get out here and get the money. Let's make sure we run you your money. In the active scholarships, that means when you go to class, you pay attention, you make the grades. Or you can have a combination of. You have a body part that can play tennis, run track, cheer, whatever. Then we could do a combination of. Or you could decide to go into the military and let the Army or Air Force, Marines, whatever, pay for your school. But we are not paying it to the point of bearing burdens. I use that as an example because I'm not required to do that. And so we have to be careful of what we tell ourselves. Are we telling ourselves, I'm required to carry this burden, and you're doing it by choice? Or are you doing it because you were unctioned by the Holy Spirit to do that? And even I believe that even if God says, I need you to carry this load, I don't think He's going to have you carry it forever. It's going to be a time frame per se, because He knows your capacity as well.
Mm, that was good. I almost heard you say, "Bring me my money."
Run the money. Run these kids their money for school. Because I tell my kids, Job Corps, Peace Corps, military, college, the shelter. Home is not on the list.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, because some kids
No.
feel like this is your obligation to pay for school,
It's not.
and it
You know,
and it
it's not.
is definitely not.
When they're
Yeah.
young, your obligation is to train them up in the way they should go. So you train them, and you train them to be independent people. If not, you'll always have those people who think that you owe them something just because you gave birth
Mm-hmm.
to them. And
Come on, sis.
giving birth to somebody and then training it up is my responsibility up to a certain age. But I'm supposed to train you to be self-sufficient, not train you to pull me down in my old age. And so I can only imagine
Come on. Come
12,
on.
12 children. When you train them up, the problem that we have as parenting is that we don't train them up. And so when they're two or three, they're telling us what to do, and then they're going to continue to do that when it's
Trying
time.
to be their friend. Girl, I'm not your friend. No, we're not doing that. And then when you turn 18, I'd be like, lean in. When you turn 18, I have now become your advisor. So I'll advise you. You do what you want with the advice. But don't call me. My kids know they will always have a safety net, even as adults. But we are so adamant about empowering these folks, teaching them. Listen, the world is not nice out here in these streets. You need to be prepared for that, and that is what Dad and I are going to do for you. And this is the same thing I do for my clients when they come under the tutelage of my coaching or whatever that is. I am going to prepare you for what's out here, or we're going to recultivate and redefine some things so that you can be better postured to deal with what's out here in these streets, because they're not nice.
Hey,
And
look,
you're welcome, Rita. I saw your message. I'm so glad. That bless you.
there you go, Rita, or anybody else. Listen, go to Girl Organize That Life. I think man, we need to say man with two N's. Man, organize that life. That might have to be the next conference. One of the three. You gotta bring some men in so they can get organized and they can realize, take their kingship at the head, uh, in marriages, at the head of the
Stay
household.
tuned.
Right. Stay tuned. You know, your husband might get motivated to jump in. Who knows? But
Well,
this is
just real quick. I did have a male panel at the summit, and they dropped some gems. I had husbands and other people married to CEOs and high achieving women, and one of the questions was, "How do we help you? What is it that you need?" And it was so good. So yeah,
Most
stay
men who
tuned.
can't handle a high achieving woman have low self esteem.
Mm-hmm.
That usually stems from somewhere, like you said, in a young space. And
Yeah,
so, fellas, if that's you, you got to at least realize it's you, and then you can fix it.
that's
If,
it.
if not, you're gonna always feel and try to be controlling. That's for somebody. I don't know who it is listening to. But if your woman is a boss, listen, I will sit home and do the dishes. Let me know. I I will be the stay at home dad if you want to go get it like that. But actually, I won't because I'm too driven to do that. But how the last quick point before we get on the box. How the two driven people uh make a? It sounds like your husband's very driven too. Make it work. Don't and then we took balance and threw it out the window. But how do you make it work?
Did we throw it out the window?
You did it. You
Well,
threw it
yes.
out the window.
Well, back to that P word, priorities. And one thing that I can appreciate about my husband, just like you said, he's comfortable in his own skin, and he lets me just do whatever it is I need to do. But I'm careful to make sure that I honor him as my husband. If I have been focused on business or my army job or whatever, I have learned to police myself up like, you know what? They're probably missing a little home cooked meal every once in a while, if it's been some time. And so I little things like that. And then I allow him to do what he needs to do. If there's some type of dream or aspiration that he has, we make sure that we understand that with each other. And we just try to be extremely supportive of each other. But even as I say this, and I want to share this publicly because I'm feeling like somebody needs to hear it. I don't want anyone to look at our business or our marriage and think, oh, it's been perfect or they have it all put together. We've had some hills to climb. And I shared this at my summit. We've been in divorce court. What year is this? Year 2022, actually. His lawyer, my lawyer, the judge. Holy Spirit was like, wait. I said, what? Like, you're getting ready to destroy nations. And what we didn't realize, I got physically sick. He got physically sick. The other one didn't know the other one was sick because we was getting ready to abort mission prematurely. And I'm sharing that because part of making a marriage work, especially if you got someone that's running a business or what have you, is that you have to die to yourself. And if you're not willing to be long suffering sometimes, then you got to stay single. And you have to take your eyes off the other person, whether if it's a marriage, a friendship, a sisterhood, a brotherhood. Stop looking at what other people are doing and do the inner work that's required of you and be healed from your spaces and places. Then you can reconvene because now you're healthier. And then as a byproduct of that, so will your relationships. They will become healthier as well. So that's how we just try to communicate and support each other and be each other's biggest cheerleader and be a safe place for one another if something has gone awry. That's how we try to make mission in the house.
I feel like we can go ahead and close the benediction, but this is the chicken box. And at least I'm gonna let my co-host, if they would like a chance to get on the box, and then Mrs. Leslie Lowerfields, you will have the last word of the day. Jay, you're on the box.
Uh, One, Leslie, thank you for coming in. That was really informative and very interesting. And to your last point, I had a question or I had a statement, and I was just kind of like threw that away after what you just said. Your honesty about the road you and your husband went on, going through this, I think is important because I think a lot of times people do look at these stories, and from people like yourself who, very much on the surface are like, here's my plan. I got it together. Like, now, take this information that I've learned. But I think people often forget there is a person behind that. And there's a person who's
Absolutely.
going through these things, and you're not at the end of the road. Like, you're still on it. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So I appreciated that honesty. And I think when you're talking about these sort of ideas of how to organize your life or de-stress or prioritize your stress, really, if we're being honest, I think that helps people to realize that perfection is not a possibility in
Mm,
life, but
mhm,
like, there is, not to beat a dead horse here, but there is this sort of idea of a road to whatever is good or whatever is perfect for you. What is your long-term outcome? So I think this entire idea of helping high achieving women sort of prioritize their lives and get organized, I think it's really good, because when a lot of people look at these and they go, if I do the 5 steps, everything is going to be good, and then like I can retire and sit back and no stress. But in reality, you are just setting yourself up for being able to handle what you can handle and being able to keep your world manageable in a way that is respectful for your own boundaries and the other people that you deal with. So I appreciate that, and that level of honesty to teach people that, yeah, you're still going. Everybody is still going. You know, to borrow a term that people like to say, you know, God is working on all of us, right? So this idea of like this program is we are also working on all of us at the same time, right? So I appreciate the program, and I appreciate your honest words there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Draper, you were on the box.
I just want to thank you for joining us on today. I heard you self-describe yourself as a coach, not a counselor. I beg to differ. I think you are a combination of coach and counselor. And there, yes, is a fine line that people try to make, but I think that you have very successfully, as a community builder, melded those things in a way that, no, you're not going and giving a DSM diagnosis, but you are counseling people and coaching them through some of the things from your own experience. And so thank you for answering the call. Thank you for listening yourself when somebody said, hey, you've got a story to tell, but you're telling it in such a way that I think people can really benefit from. So all the best to you on your national tour. I know that you will set some boundaries so that you don't burn out as you make your tour, your Christmas week tour in Texas. I might check you out on the 22nd. I'll get the information from that. And so all the best to you. I loved all the things you had to say. And I know you have a new book, a devotional out. So we want to just encourage people to support you. Small businesses, no matter how we look at it, have the potential to be huge businesses if we stop calling them small businesses. So I'm going to speak into your life.
Amen.
Speak into your life that you will have a very, very large enterprise that will impact people all over the world. I'm off the box.
Received.
I second that emotion. I almost wanted to sing, but now you want to make me think about what I was saying, Dr. Dre. But anyway, I'm going to leave it with this. You know how you hear something so good and it's like, okay, I'm going to work out tomorrow. You know what I mean? And then the next day, well, you going to work out? I don't know. And then next day, nope. I'm not even thinking about working out. I'm going to leave it like this. Start with your mindset and how you talk to yourself. If I didn't take anything, and I have prescribed to this because people say to me, "Do you get sick?" I say, "No, I never get sick." I used to say I get sick like once a year, and I would get sick once a year. I said, "Wait a minute, I gotta stop saying that." And then I just started saying I don't get sick, and they're like, "What do you mean you don't get sick?" I said I don't get sick, and that's my story. Now, have I had a flu-like symptom? Maybe, but I don't. But I don't get sick. But that is what I begin to say to myself. Speak great things about yourself. Speak powerful words about yourself. Because if you are a believer, the power of life and death is in your tongue. Is in your tongue. So what you gonna say? You gonna die every day, or you gonna live? I'm gonna leave it right there. Are you gonna die every day, or are you going to live? Speak life into your own self, and don't consume the news from negative nobodies. Anyway, Ms. Leslie Lawfield, the CEO of, I'm gonna say it one more time, girl, organize that life. You need a commercial where it just says the girl real loud.
I might make one tonight.
please do. That's a new thing. Listen, I'll give that to you royalty free. So you on the box, Dr. Leslie. I mean, I made you a doctor, Dr. Leslie.
Oh, you're like the third person that said doctor.
That's in the prophetic. I'm speaking life. I'm speaking it before it was, as Trevor would say.
A couple of things. First off, thank you all for having me. I'm so humbled and just blessed to be here and to have met you all. And congratulations on your 132 years of being in business. That is amazing. That's a big deal. But yes, for those that would like to get the journal, this is it right here. You can go to girlorganizethatlife.com and click on the books tab and scroll down, and you'll see several other books. This is my sixth book, but my first solo book. So yes, I invite you to come and grab that journal and let it bless you. A few announcements I like to make. So yes, we're going on a tour. I talked about that. And we do have a watch party coming up on October 9th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can go to the website and get the details for that as well. But I did want to say something really quick. You mentioned mindset. A lot of people don't realize we have about 12,000 thoughts, 12 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and 60 to 80% of them are not good thoughts. So by the time we wake up in the morning, put one foot on the floor and then the other, we've already had a thought that wasn't positive. So to emphasize and to drive home what you said, be super careful about what you're saying to yourself. If you're saying you're tired, you're going to be that. Whatever the mind goes, the man follows. And that's by Joyce Meyer. So I want to encourage people, like the gentleman was saying, to watch your thoughts. I'm just, my heart is full. I'm so just, gosh, I don't know what to say other than I am so incredibly humbled to have had this time with you all, and I appreciate you. And if you are in the Atlanta area, I will be speaking at the Hilton, the Peachtree Hilton at 1:30 on August 5th for another summit. Pumps, Diamond and Pumps, I think it's called, where we're pushing women up to their next level. So if you want to come out and get some more gems, come on. Hilton Hotel in Atlanta if you're in the area.
Sounds like a new reality show, Diamonds and Pumps, August 5th. If you want to listen, if you
How
just
about October? How about October 5th, guys? Is it October? Not
October
August.
5th.
Got you.
Not August. Okay. All right.
October 5th, oh, you might as well just stay here for the weekend. Absolutely. So listen, remember, y'all, call a senior. I say it every week. They would love to hear from you. Don't text them. Call them and say hello. 5 minutes with a senior will make their whole month. Believe me, they are home waiting for you to call. They don't know your busy quote unquote schedule, but find some time to call a loved one, auntie, uncle, grandma, mama, somebody who would love to hear from you before the funeral. This has been another wonderful day on the Chicken Box. Stay busy, y'all, but be organized. Have some structure to it. And if you need help with it, go to Girl Organize That Life. and Mrs. Leslie Laura Fields will help you. We love to hear the great stories from everyone, but especially when it comes out of the DMV. Thank you for being who you are, and we look forward to big things. Tell Trevor we said hello at the Afro.
I sure will.
Take care.